Welcome to the Twitter Jabs 2. My name is Apollo Sarah and I'm joined by my colleague Agi Uwase. Unfortunately, we're supposed to be joined by Kanso Kalali Stevens, and he's the lawyer that took government to court, is suing government for poor housing condition for police officers, most of whom he says live in depleted housing structures, and that has been the conversation today, and we continue it from the Twitter Jabs 1 to the Twitter Jabs 2, and today we are discussing police welfare in Uganda. Well, in his lawsuit, just to give you a preamble in case you missed the Twitter Jabs 1, in his lawsuit that was filed before the High Court against the country's Attorney General, Mr. Kalali wants government, wants court to declare that the poor accommodation structures that are availed to some police officers be by the government and her agencies. He says that they infringe on the officers' right to dignity of human persons and privacy and family.
It's very unfortunate what is going on, honestly, and I think that this comes right in time. I mean, these are conversations that even the wananchi, the citizens, including us, we've always talked about. You know, when you're going via Naguru, when you look at that barracks, it looks very depleted. It looks like people are living in a dire state. I don't know. It's very disturbing to see. You know, you find them cooking just right outside those unipots, and this is where they sleep. This is where they put everything. This is where they sleep with their children. So it's very disturbing for me, especially when I mean, police should actually be prioritized. Exactly. They should prioritize their needs. Because at the end of the day, these are they keep law and order, and I feel like if they are living in a poor state or conditions, they would definitely have to project that onto the wananchi, and we are the ones to suffer in the
Well, the newly appointed Deputy Inspector General of Police, that is Major General Tumsime Katsigazi, he went on to urge government to increase funding for the police force so that the institution can better cater to the fast-changing policing dilemmas. He went on to ask by saying, he went on to say that when he was making his maiden visit to the police's mechanical workshops in Kampala, and he believes that the 840 billion shillings that have been allocated, that is the budget allocated to the police force, is not enough, and he urged government to please increase it this financial year. Well, the police force was allocated 840.5 billion shillings this financial year, and of this, 369 billion shillings will cater for salaries, while 38 billion shillings will go to clearing areas. And police engineers showed General Katsigazi hundreds of vehicles and motorcycles that are grounded because there is no money to repair them. We actually have courtesy footage from that engagement with the government. Please take a look.
Appearing before the Defense Committee, the officials from Uganda Police intimated the force is faced with areas amounting to shillings 77 billion. The estimates include shillings 20 billion meant for special meals and drinks, 10 billion owed to energy distributor Umeme, 15 billion to National Water and Sewage Corporation, 8 billion for court awards and work compensation, among others. The officials attributed the swelling areas to budget shortfalls.
We have to deal with to work with the Minister of Finance. And that's where we think Parliament can be very of use. So that when we are negotiating with finance, Parliament, which speaks for and on behalf of the people of Uganda, will also back us. The Director of Logistics is here. Will tell you how much money he gets for fuel. So once you help us to address this, then you will definitely see a change.
In their appropriation, shillings 25.7 billion earmarked for CCTV camera maintenance and shillings 187 billion assigned for implementation of phase 3 of the CCTV cameras.
Doing our level best, of course, that's our priority, because cameras reduce the presence of physical manpower. Like you can see, you know, one camera was able to tell us what happened on Parliamentary Road. Another camera was able to tell us what happened on near the police station.
The legislators raised query police constables deployed for the general elections in January have since not been paid. Coincidentally, also dozens are security detail VIPs.
You find each VIP is having like 10 policemen guarding, escorting, one in front, one there. what is the criteria of the deployment of police officers?
The SPCs, it has been indicated that some money, some people were paid, those ones who worked in the election. Kindly, whoever is concerned, visit the district of Mukono. These people have never been paid. And the money is here hanging.
I'm hearing for the first time that SPCs who participated in elections in Mukono have never been paid. I must apologize to you. I think it was an oversight on the part of the police. Police, from today on, pay those SPCs after verification that they did work. The question of guarding VIPs. We guard VIPs in consonance with the level of threat. The threat to the VIP. If we have information that Seth Kubo is in danger of being waylaid, then we provide protection in accordance with the level of threat.
Yes, well, you have it there, you have it. Well, the Deputy Inspector General of Police, that is General Katsigezi, also further explained that for police to effectively deal with criminality and policing tasks, they need to have all their fleet functioning. This is above all their other, urges to government. Yes. And then he also went on to add and say that there is a need to have full-time patrols stationed at highways to deal with criminals. And it is reported that more than 1,300 police vehicles and motorcycles are currently grounded because there is no money to fix this. Well, at the moment, there are currently 37,400 police officers and 396 civilian staff working in the Uganda police force.
You see, while they focus on, the vehicles and all that, I think they should firstly take care of, the welfare of police, because we see in September 2021, the Assistant Inspector General of Police, Sorowen, did talk about, while he was commissioning the Bukedia Police Station and residential building to house police officers at the station, he went on to say that despite the regular attention given to severe shortage of accommodation for Uganda police, the situation is not improving at all, which means that they actually approve of this. Most families are sharing small rooms in housing units, including uniports. If you have, gone along now,
we actually have pictures of what these uniports are. They're like those container metallic structures that the police officers live in them. If you live next to a police station or police barracks, you definitely know what they look like. Others, some of them have, depleting, falling apart buildings, especially in areas of Naguru. Well, in upcountry, it's even worse because some of them live in grass-thatched
And to make
houses.
it even worse is that their hygienic condition in most of the places of accommodation are also awful. So besides having the uniport that is very small for the family, it also comes back to the we were talking about on Twitter, Jabs, one, shortage of water supply, shortage of power. Those are so many other among other challenges or grievances that they have. And also we've seen that the human rights defender Dr. Livingstone Sewanyama and is the executive director Foundation for Human Rights Initiative recently did criticize government for failing to consider police housing a priority. And other human rights activists called it a human rights violation, adding that no wonder sometimes police officers act inhumanely when they are dealing with the public. And that is something that I talked about earlier. I mean, you're living in a, the conditions of living are very poor. So it's not that it's justified, but one thing leads to another,
I know. If the grievances of police officers are not being met, they're just like any other citizen. They are, providing a service to the country. They're not going to be able to serve and protect if they cannot even serve and protect in their own homes. You see, it doesn't make any sense
at all.
Exactly.
But we do see the government, came on to say to solve the challenges, they allocated funds for improving housing and working conditions and tapping on internal resources of police officers as a source of labor for constructing more houses in the barracks and workspaces like police stations and headquarters. But I think that now they should do, is it walking the talk?
Exactly.
I mean, it's been the talk, but how about they actually implement or put these directives into effect as soon as possible?
Well, as you can see, if you could look at the pictures again, we'll have them going on our screen. They do not have, there isn't any proper facilitation for, you know, hygiene, like restrooms or bathrooms or toilets, poor drainage systems, and that is why the buildings are actually literally being eroded away. The road access is just absolutely terrible. The access to education and health services is also just very, it's such a pitiful sight. And my heart just goes out to them, and I hope that the police actually, government actually does something about it, because they're starting to as if take this institution for granted. I mean, it is no surprise that it is the most corrupt, because they have to survive.
Does that justify it though?
It doesn't.
It doesn't justify it.
I can't say that on TV. I can't say that on TV.
But here's the thing, our police officers and the army do have representatives in parliament, and you know, we've never, you know, seen the army representatives in parliament, you know, come on to table a bill or, you know, talking about the welfare of police.
No, so but they have.
My issue is, what's the essence at the end of the day? Because I mean, if you have a representative, or if you are a representative of a section, be it of Ugandans or police or the army, then you're supposed to table their grievances.
Exactly. No, but they have been tabling these agreements. Back in 2012, the spouses and children of police officers took to the streets to riot, and which was actually very ironic, because now they are, you know, rioting and calling out the people who are supposed to be, you know, providing for them. Do you understand what I mean? So they have been, they are aware these things have been done. The only problem is the following up. Yes, budgets are being allocated. I mean, 840.5 billion has been allocated to this sector, and what we need is accountability. Are the salaries being paid? All right. Is housing being improved? Because these are promises that have been made year in, year out. Who should we hold accountable in the event that it is not? And also, I think it's very important to understand that if these things are not met, then things like corruption is going to continue in the police in the police department. Things like brutalization by police is going to continue. Things like just frustrations by the police officers are just going to continue and be, you know, projected onto the civilians. So it's very important for this to actually have to be mentioned. There's also the issue of being the sector, the institution being understaffed. And last year, that was in November, His Excellency, the President of Uganda, did pass out a total of 55,200 officers that had completed a 12-month course at Kabalye Police Training in Masindi District. And he went on to say that the police ratio in Uganda was actually really wide, and he went on to say, speaking at the function, the president reasoned that the police leadership, that there is a need to increase on the number of police officers to ensure proper policing, and the ratio should be 1 policeman to 500 people.
Yes.
Okay. And now with the population in Uganda at over 43 million people, we should, he went on to say that we should be having ideally 860,000 police in the
and I think besides increasing the numbers of policemen, how about they first sort out, you know, the welfare of the ones that we have at the moment, because you are bringing them in and yet you do not have, you know, buildings for them or structures or homes for them. And I also think it's an issue of priorities, because in the financial budget of 2021-2022, shillings 916 billion of the police budget was devoted, rather, and that is the whole budget, but 172.6 billion was allocated to surveillance and acquisition of firepower to deal with civil disobedience. Those are the priorities I'm talking about, but spares only 94.4 billion shillings for officers' welfare, with only 18 of every 100 officers able to afford accommodation. So how about they just, you know, do like a flip, and then the budget may be the one that's allocated to surveillance and, you know, civil disobedience by civilians should be a little bit less. And for now the accommodation, trust me, a happy person will actually do the right thing. Or I mean, if they improve the welfare of police officers, maybe we'll actually see understanding police officers on the streets of Kampala.
My argument, Aggie, is that accountability should be demanded. How is this money being allocated, as opposed to reducing one area and then increasing in another area? It's very important to have surveillance. I mean, with the terrorist attacks that we have, the increase in crime rate on the streets, especially on on the highways, you understand, it's very, very important that that budget does not be touched, at least for me, personally speaking. I think it just goes down to I think allocation is done right. It just need we just
Is
need
it
to
though?
we
Is
need
it though?
to
Because this is the thing,
understand
Sarah.
where is
Here's
this
the
money
thing.
going?
Here's the thing. Now the police's
If
budget.
they're putting money into housing, why is it that the houses have looked the same since
Well,
the
there
90s?
is that. They need to follow up and do the needful. But then again, I feel like, you see, this budget of 916 billion budget for the 2021-2022 financial year provides only shillings 16.24 billion for power and shillings 11.09 billion for water bills. And that is across the entire country. That is little money. And it would also require an additional shillings 86 billion to sort out the utility bills annually, meaning that the allocated funds can sustain the utilities for only 4 months in a year. And remember, this is a yearly or annual financial budget. And if it only sustains 4 months, maybe that justifies the fact that, the living conditions of police officers are the way they are. It's unfortunate. Maybe the police budget needs to be revised and priorities need to be shifted to the welfare of police officers. And there's Haj Musa did post a tweet where she said, but female police officers are living in poor conditions in the barracks. Rwanda has built new barracks. 35 years, no new accommodation, but you have new renovated state lodges across Uganda. Where is the good leadership? No, for me, it's where are the priorities? I mean, sometimes we need to pick a leaf from our neighboring countries about what they are doing, or maybe, just like you talked about, maybe actually the money is there, but there is money swindling, corruption.
I hear money swindling.
Is it corruption? Corruption. Yeah, swindlers. I should call it.
Every cent counts, no matter how little we may think it is. But if it is not properly used, then it is not going to be properly utilized by the people who are deserving of these resources. And that, I think, for me, is where it's supposed to work. So in case you're just wondering, a person working as a police officer in Uganda typically earns around 1.5 million Uganda shillings per month, and salaries range from as low as 699,000 Uganda shillings to 2.4 million Uganda shillings. And this is the average monthly salary, including housing, transport, and other benefits. And police officer salaries vary drastically based on the experience, skills, gender. Why are we still doing this? Or location of where the officer is working. I don't know why things like gender still have to determine somebody's salary. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's 2022. I think that's another conversation that should be tabled.
But we're seeing the Right Honorable Speaker Anita Among, and that is the Speaker of Parliament, did actually express her concern about the dire living state of police officers. And this was where she had gone for a burial of the late Robert Bweyamba, who was a police officer at Nsambia Police Barracks. And she did say that the welfare of police officers has to be addressed as a matter of urgency, because the situation at Nsambia, as well as other police barracks in this country, is worrying, which means that they actually also see it. Is it that, are they seeing it now, or it's now that it's in a very terrible state that everyone is coming out to talk about it?
You know what I'm just tired of is the thoughts and prayers and concern, because these are legislators who have the ability to make the right allocations, appropriate allocations, and also ask for accountability. That is what they do not ask for. I wish we would have more committees that hold people accountable for the the allocation and usage of funds and money. And that is one thing that we lack in this country. I think it's the biggest problem, not just only in the Uganda police, but in every ministry and sector in our government and in our country. The lack of accountability to hold people responsible, people who we place in power. By the way, the people that we put in place to make decisions for us. So I think it's about time we start demanding accountability, because if you're allocating 840.5 billion to one sector, then the stakeholders in that sector should demand to know where is it going. Because if you're saying that you're going to allocate this amount of money to housing, how come my house has been the same since, you know, since 30 years, since it's still the same?
How better do you think we can ask for accountability? Because I feel like we have done this, or we are still doing it. In media houses, we're always talking about this. In print media, we read it in newspapers. I mean, people are always talking about it. So how well? Because when we take to the streets, I mean, is that could be, I don't know. It's how well can our leaders listen to us and, you know, be accountable to us? Because we have done it.
No,
I think we have done it. Is there anything more that you think Ugandans can do about accountability?
What we need to do is be consistent with it, not just ask one time and then, you know, forget about it and move on very quickly with the new headline.
Move on really fast.
We need to be very consistent about it. And I think that the people who are the ones in the struggle are the ones who need to press even harder and, you know, ask for assistance. But kudos to people who are, you know, taking up the challenge, like Council like Council Stephen, yes, who is one of many, who is suing government for, you know, the poor housing conditions of the police, and his name is Council Kalali Stevens. He's the one who is suing government for the poor living conditions of the Uganda police.
But I also think that our leaders need to take it upon themselves. Why do you need to be reminded at the end of the day? This is something that you need to do. How about, you know, they should give us or cut us some slack. We've ranted a lot on social media and media houses. How about they actually take it upon themselves to know that, you know what, these are the people that we represent and they need this to be done. This needs to be in place. Take it upon themselves.
All right. Well, we'd love to hear your thoughts, so please connect with us across all social media platforms on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Let us know what you think. How can we hold our governments accountable for the promises that they make to improve the different sectors? And how best can the Uganda police living conditions be improved? I'd definitely love to hear from you. So tweet, tag me, that is at AppleSara1, and you can tag Aggie at
Aggie Uwase.
Exactly. And also tag CTV Uganda, please. Would love to hear from you. Let's continue this conversation. But don't go anywhere, because Sunrise at Sea continues and we have so much more in store for you. So don't blink.